everyone, I'm Kelly from Culikid, and today we're going to make some black bean burgers. So as always, we're going to get started and make sure we have all of our ingredients and supplies ready. So for our burgers, we will need some breadcrumbs, olive oil, ground cumin, a can of black beans, some salt, some onion, 1 egg, 1 clove of garlic, and some parsley. And for our supplies, we will need a cutting board and a knife, some measuring spoons and measuring cups, a zester or grater, and a pan for the stove, as well as we have a bowl to mix everything with and a plate for our patties. And I also have some tools here which are optional, and so we have a strainer to strain our beans, and we have a garlic press for our garlic. But if you don't have those, you can make do without them. So let's get started with cooking. Okay, so before you get started, make sure that you have washed your hands thoroughly with soap and water. And I've already done that, so I'm ready to get started. So the first step will be for us to open our can of beans and to strain them. And this is going to make us about 2 burgers. So if you are feeding more people than that, you'll want to double or even maybe triple this recipe. So keep that in mind as we are going through. So you're going to take your can opener here and take the blade part of the opener and put it onto the can and press down on these handles. And now just twist this part until it goes all the way around and your can is open. Perfect. Okay, so we need to strain all of this juice liquid out of our beans. So the easiest way to do it is to put everything into a strainer and then to rinse them over the sink. If you don't have a strainer, I mentioned you don't necessarily need one. You could try this in a colander, or you could even just rinse them in the can and use the lid to strain out the water, and do that a bunch of times, especially to get all of the stuff that's remaining on the bottom of the can. Okay, so we will take this and, oops, there goes our can lid. And be careful with this because that is some sharp metal, so be careful with touching the edges. Anyway, we will dump that into our strainer and give this a rinse. And also, there's still some beans stuck to the bottom of here, so we'll also just rinse those out and pour them through here. And keep doing that until the can is empty. Okay, and now that they're strained, we're just gonna put them right into our bowl. And now we will use our masher to mash them, but you could also just use a fork. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to press down on the beans until they are somewhat mushed together, somewhat still chunks of beans. So we'll do this for a little while and I'll show you what it looks like and what you should be aiming for at home. And I just want to show you what it would look like if I had a fork. So I would be doing more on the side like this because it's kind of hard with the angle of the fork to go down in the center. So you can scoop your beans to the side and press them like this. So that's how you do it if you don't have one of those mashers. And this is kind of the consistency that we're looking for. You can see how we have some bean pieces in here. We also have this paste that's going to hold everything together. And the next thing that's going to go in will be the onion. So this is what we're going to use the grater for, so that way we got nice fine pieces of onion. And we only need about 2 tablespoons. So we don't need this whole onion, but I'm going to cut off the edge here, the end, and then peel this off. With our onion, we're just going to do this by sight. So we're looking for about 2 tablespoons. So I'm just going to grate it for a little while in here. Okay, and so we have little pieces, little bits of onion in here. And so I used a zester, and you can use a grater, like a box grater, that will get you a little bit more bigger pieces of onion rather. So we'll just clean up this a little bit and then move on to our next step. Now we're ready for our garlic. And like I said, I'm gonna use the garlic press. But if you don't have one, you can just use your knife and your cutting board to mince it, which means to cut it into really small pieces. And I love this garlic press because it's just so easy that you just put it in and you get like these nice little pieces. And so it's a great tool to minimize some work, especially if you're using garlic a lot. And next we're going to add our parsley. So I have this bundle of parsley here, and we just need about 2 tablespoons. So first, I'm just gonna take out a few, and I'm gonna rinse these. So any herbs, any produce that you're using, you wanna make sure you wash them so that there's no dirt, no germs. Okay, and for the parsley, we just wanted to use the leaves, so we'll just pull some of those off and make a pile, put our stems to the side, and do that for all of them until we have a nice pile of parsley leaves. Okay, and now that we have our pile of leaves, we're going to chop them. So we're going to bundle them together as much as possible. If it was a little neater, I could have done this a little bit better, but that's still okay. We're gonna take our knife, and again, make sure you're holding your knife correctly. So that's, your thumb is on this side, your finger is here, so you're pinching it together and wrapping your hands around here. You make sure that you have your fingers in, curl your fingertips under, so that way they're not going to get, you're not gonna chop them with a knife. And you're just gonna slice back and forth. And notice the motion that I'm making with the knife. You don't wanna just go straight down, and you don't wanna just slice, you wanna do both at the same time. So I'm going down and pushing forward. And now I'm just gonna turn our bundle, and we're gonna chop it the other way, so that way they're in little small pieces instead of just strips. And if you're nervous about using a knife, and especially with herbs like this when you get down to the end and you can't really hold it with your hand as well, this is another way that you can do it. So you can put your knife on the board and put your hand on the knife and just kind of rock it back and forth. And again, we're just estimating here, so if we put this together, it's like kind of 2 tablespoons, maybe a little bit more, but that's okay. So we'll just take this and put this in here. And one thing I didn't mention in the beginning is that if you don't have parsley, you can use cilantro instead. You can also try dried parsley flakes as well. Maybe just cut that in half to 1 tablespoon instead of 2 tablespoons. And we'll move on to our next step. I just want to point out that I've mentioned before that I keep scraps sometimes for veggie broth and things like that. So these stems are something that I would want to keep for some parsley herb flavor in the broth. So I'm going to keep and freeze these and tidy up a little bit, and then we'll move on to our next step. Next, we are going to add our breadcrumbs. So I'm using plain breadcrumbs here. You could also try panko. Since we got parsley in here anyway, you could also use Italian if you have that. So we need half a cup. Next, we will add our cumin and our salt. And for each of those, we need a 1/4 teaspoon. So we take our cumin. Measure about a 1/4 teaspoon and pour it in. And then take your salt. And very slowly, if you're pouring, especially, be really careful not to go overboard. We have a 1/4 teaspoon and pour that in. Next, we'll add our egg. And for just the 2 burgers, we'll just actually need half an egg. So I'm gonna crack it in here first and whisk it together with a fork. Okay, and we have it all mixed together, and I'm gonna pour in about half of this. And now we're ready to mix our mixture together, but first we're going to prepare our pan. So have your pan on the stove burner and turn your burner on to medium heat. So that way it can warm up while you're mixing this. So I'm gonna grab a spoon. You can also use your hands if you'd like. I'm gonna use my hands later to, probably at the end here, and then also to form them into patties. Okay, wow, take a look. It's all mixed together, and just like everything, when it all starts to look the same, that's how you know when you are done mixing. So we're going to grab our plate and start forming our burgers. So I am going for about 2 burgers, and if there's too much, we'll just make extra, or we'll make a little mini one. So we'll see what we get. And like I said, this is where I'm gonna use my hand. So I'm gonna just take out a piece. And that looks pretty good. It looks like we're gonna get probably 2.5 here. So form it into a ball first a little bit, push it all together to make sure that it's all gonna stay together, and then flatten it out into a burger shape. Okay, so that's everything. So you see we have 2 full-size burgers and 1 a little bit smaller. So it's up to you if you want to just make 2 really big burgers, or you can make 4 smaller burgers. Depends also on the size of your roll, also maybe the size of your appetite. So this one we're just gonna save and have for lunch tomorrow, or a little snack later when we're hungry. Okay, so now our pan is hot and our patties are made. So we're ready to start cooking them in the pan. So we'll need to grab our olive oil and put about 1 to 2 tablespoons in the pan. Again, this is something that I just estimate. And make sure that the whole pan is covered. So once that I add it, I do a little swirl around and make sure the whole bottom is covered with oil so nothing will stick. And you're gonna be really careful and just add them to your oil. Okay, and so these should cook for 5 minutes on each side. So we'll set our timer. And you'll also need a spatula to flip these over when our timer goes off. So if you don't have one yet, grab that now. I forgot to mention that in the beginning. And then also grab what you need for your burgers. So we're gonna put these on some buns, and I'm gonna top mine with some cheese. So I'm gonna grab that. Grab anything that you need to assemble them, so that way once we flip them over, we're ready to eat when they're done. Our timer just went off, so we're gonna take our spatula and flip them now. So grab them underneath, and you can hold them if you need to, and then just carefully flip them over. Be careful, especially if you have a lot of oil left in the pan, not to either put it down too hard or have your hands too close to the oil. Beautiful. So you see we have these great crispy crusts on them. So we'll cook for another 5 minutes on the other side. And with just a few minutes left, we will also stop and put our cheese on top so it gets a little bit melty. And then we're all done. So we'll check back in after our next timer goes up, which I'm gonna set right now. So right now there is 3 minutes left on our timer. So I'm going to just take our slices of cheese and top our burgers. And we're gonna let it cook for the last 3 minutes. And the cheese will be a little bit melty and the burgers will be done. And that's our timer. So now that our timer went off, we are ready to remove our burgers. So just get under there again with your spatula take them off. You can either put them on a plate, put them directly on your bun. And then when you're done, well, turn off your burner. Now you're done though, and you can top it with whatever you like. Some ketchup and lettuce and tomato, however you like to top your burgers. So you have some delicious black bean burgers. Enjoy!